international community.
Okay. The Dutchman Willem Buiten, he is chief economist at Citigroup, doesn't think it would be a huge disaster if a country were to go bankrupt. And, quote, "It's not such a bad thing at all for a country to go bankrupt. It is not like a company that goes bankrupt. The country won't cease to exist. Costs and revenues will just be redistributed." Unquote.
Well, I let him, I know him, I let him the responsibility of what he says. He has his own freedom of writing.
Yeah, but it's interesting thesis, this.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of very interesting and stimulating theses, and this is the great privilege, if I may, of academia and of such brilliant professors to be able to say that. I have myself been chairman of the Paris Club in the 80s and the beginning of the 90s. It is the club which was precisely dealing with countries that had bankrupted. And,
especially in the third world.
And I have the memory of what happened in Mexico, in Brazil, in Argentina, in Poland, in Egypt, in Soviet Union at the time, because I had to be profoundly involved in all those problems. I would not let somebody say that it is not a problem, because you should ask those who had the responsibility of these countries at the time. But again, let's not embark in too much theory. In practice, we have a program. We have a program in the countries that you have mentioned. They are implementing that program. They have to implement this program rigorously, and we are controlling that every quarter.
Would it be possible that the Euro country who are in trouble now, Portugal, Greece, Ireland, restructures their debts this year? No.
This is not the assumption that we have in mind, both the European and the international community.
Yeah, you don't have it in mind, but it could happen.
Sir, I'm sorry. We have, again, a program that we are applying.
Okay. Your answer is clear.
Yeah.
What's the likelihood? What will happen with the countries, what you think?
They will pursue these policies because the European governments, again, it's not the responsibility of the central bank. This is in the hands of the European governments, individually and collectively. Individually, because those who have this program have to implement the program, and as I said, be ahead of the curve, and the council, namely the college of the governments of Europe, Euro area and the 27, depending on the governance, but for the Euro area, it is the 17. And the 17 have, on behalf of their own authority, and of course, on the report of the Commission, to follow, to control, to survey, and to have this kind of permanent governance that we are calling for. It is their responsibility, and each authority has to be up to its responsibility.
Okay. You don't want to mention the word restructure, but isn't it cheaper for the European Union as a whole to restructure the debt of countries such as the countries I mentioned before, and subsequently recapitalize the banking system, than the solution that is currently being chosen, namely a European Rescue Fund?
I think I was clear enough on the fact that I was not envisaging this issue. Let me only tell you that...
Because that's what we're worried about.
Some are speaking lightly of such events. There has not been a single default in the advanced economy since World War II. We have to be aware of what we are talking about. And this is something, again, which is not the working assumption at all, not only at the level of the European, but at the level of the international community.
You are aware that everything you say is carefully weighed. So isn't it strange that the interpretation of your words is more important than the words themselves?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, the words themselves are what is important, and they have to be carefully crafted, because it's normal when you have a high level of responsibility. It's the case for all my colleagues of the central bank governors, central bank president. It is very important that we are the master of our words and the master of our language. And it's normal that, you know, the investors, savers, market participants are seeing and trying to understand what we say exactly.
You have to stop.
Yeah.
Because the term is over.
8-year stop.
8-year stop. Will it be difficult to say goodbye while you are in the midst of managing a euro crisis? It's a personal question.
Yeah, the governments have to manage the crisis of the sovereign risks.
But you have your own responsibility.
As far as the currency is concerned, we have, as I said, a currency that had kept its value and is credible. But, of course, you know, it's such an inspiring responsibility, such an important and inspiring responsibility to be the captain of such a team that, of course, it would be you know,
from one day to the other. Yeah. It's over.
Yeah, but I know myself. I know that I will continue to be active.
Okay.
My wife always tells me that. I know you will continue to be active. But that being said, it's a 8-year terms, and that 8-year terms is part of the independence of the institution and of each member, of course, of the directorate. And I think that fierce independence is absolutely essential for the credibility of the institution.
Okay, let's continue. In October's Global Financial Stability Report, the IMF states that, and I quote, "The global financial system is still in a period of significant uncertainty and remains the Achilles heel of the economic recovery."
First of all, I would say that on the economic recovery, it is clear that it is ongoing. And if I take the example of the euro area or the European economy, the 27, the 17, we have been, since the third quarter of 2009, when the recovery started, we've been, and I'm very happy with that, a little bit surprised by better results than what was projected, quarter after quarter. So that, of course, it is particularly visible in some countries. I have to say, certainly like the German economy or the Netherlands, the Dutch economy and others. But all taken into account, the euro area is displaying better results in the real economy than what was projected previously. It is true also at the global level. It is absolutely clear, and I share certainly the view of the IMF, because it is what we say constantly, that as regards the hard work to make the system, the financial system, much less fragile, much more solid, much more resilient. We already did a good work, but a lot of hard work remains to be done. And we are participating very actively in this effort.
Okay, we talked about the short term. Let's have a short look at the longer term, if you don't mind. In your own monthly bulletin published last Friday, you warned that without significant reforms, the economy won't grow sufficiently as a result of the aging population. Take Holland, for instance. In the 4 years to come, no structural reforms of the labor market have been planned. What will happen if it will not change?
We consider that structural reforms are of the essence to permit to elevate the growth potential of Europe, of all countries and of Europe as a whole. The paradox, of course, is that this view is entirely shared theoretically by all governments, because it was exactly what they had decided with the famous so-called Lisbon agenda. It was an agenda of structural reforms in all domains. Markets of goods, markets of services, labor markets, and so forth. And obviously, these reforms have been very timid.
Yes.
It is also not only the diagnosis of the ECB, but also recognized by government themselves. So now they have a new program of 10 years, 2020 program.
But it will take so long.
But it takes long, and I have to say that it seems to me that not only there is a problem of courage by the governments themselves, because those reforms supposes...
What do you mean?
Sorry, I interrupt.
What do you mean by there is not enough courage?
They are hurting vested interest. And, you know, for the benefit of long-term sustainable growth, prosperity, and job creation, you have to, you know, infuriate elements, a segment of your own constituencies. And that is understandable. It's always, you know, the mark of this long-term structural reforms that have a great benefit. But what we trust also is that there is a problem of explanation, a big problem of you know, showing the structural reforms that had very good results in a number of countries, in order to benchmark the other on what has succeeded brilliantly in some countries. And I have to say that when I look, I don't want to make an éloge of the Netherlands, but I mean, over time, the prosperity of the Netherlands and also the relatively low level of unemployment, even if one is never satisfied, of course, with level of unemployment, but I can compare myself from my own position, the various countries, and I have to say that there are elements of your own economy that could be adopted by others. You could also say the reverse. I mean, there are certainly elements where...
What could we learn from Germany, for example?
Well, I think that what we can learn from the German economy today is that concentrating on your own competitiveness is essential. Germany has worked after the boom of the reunification, where they had lost a lot of cost competitiveness. Over the last, I would say, 10 years, they have worked year after year after year on improving their competitiveness. It was hard, it was difficult, and it was not accepted lightly, of course, by the people. But it is paying off now.
We already mentioned you stop in November. What vital quality must your successor have?
The treaty, which is extremely wise, says that you have to get somebody who has a great level of experience.
Okay, so that must be a German.
Again, I say it is up to the heads of state and government.
Okay, thank you very much for this conversation, and it was an honor to have you in our program.
Thank you very much for your invitation. Thank you.
Dat was gisteren. Zo dadelijk de nieuwe voorzitter van de HBO-raad, Guusje ter Horst. Maar nu eerst camera en microfoon voor onze columnist Max Pam.
Onlangs gaf Wouter Bos een interview aan NRC Handelsblad waarin hij verklaarde eindelijk rust te hebben